Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to today's program, Sexual Violence as a Weapon of War, with a focus on October 7th, co-sponsored by the Women in Law section, the International section, and the Committee on Continuing Legal Education of the New York State Bar Association. Today's program will run from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and at any point, if you would like to pose a question to today's speakers, please use the Q&A function in the Zoom portal. Please note that you must remain on the line for the duration of the program to receive CLE credit for your participation. Be sure that you record all verification codes announced during the program, and please note that you should not ask for the codes or type them in the Q&A box for other attendees. All attendees will need to return to their learning dashboard at the conclusion of the program and enter all verification codes that were announced to receive your CLE certificate. The verification form, course materials, and evaluation form are also available there. And instructions on how to access the learning dashboard were included in the greetings email that you received earlier today. And at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to today's moderator and immediate past president of the New York State Bar Association, Richard Lewis, to kick things off for us. Rick?
Thanks very much, Ernesto, and thank you to our co-sponsors, the Continuing Legal Education Department, the International section, and of course the Women in Law section. The New York State Bar Association has taken a number of steps to condemn what happened on October the 7th. We have passed a resolution. We have met with the Israel Bar Association. We have attempted to assist people who have been displaced or otherwise negatively impacted by the bar in conjunction with the Israel Bar Association by setting up a portal for pro bono assistance, legal assistance in Israel. And our relationship has grown more and more. And candidly, what precipitated that growth is the evils that took place on the 7th of October. Today, we are so lucky because we have someone who is a true expert with regard to what's happened, who has been very involved in connection with the investigation of this horrible event. Cochav Elkayam-Levy, Dr. Elkayam-Levy, is with us today, and she has a resume that I won't go too deeply into, but she is the chair of the Civil Commission on October 7th Crimes by Hamas Against Women and Children, and she is the recipient of the Israel Prize, the very prestigious Israel Prize. She's an expert on international law, human rights, and feminist legal theories. She and her team have been documenting the atrocities Hamas committed on October the 7th. And in response to her findings, Dr. Elkayam-Levy and her colleagues are considering a new war crime category known as kinocide, which is the deliberate weaponization of women and families and or the destruction of families as a weapon of war. The United Nations has found reasonable grounds to believe sexual violence occurred on October 7th. And while we don't believe that that would be a giant step, there are still the deniers out there. The determination came from the UN visit to attacked areas in Israel, videos, photographs from October 7th, interviews with survivors, witnesses, and first responders, not to mention returned hostages who have spoken about their own sexual assaults in captivity. Amit, I hope I'm not pronouncing this too badly, Salsana, indicated that she was assaulted by one of her captors, and she recounted that story in the New York Times. Agam Goldstein Almag said that another hostage had told her that she was also assaulted by Hamas, by a Hamas guard. Certain incidents may be disputed, but the overall conclusion is clear, and that is there was obviously an unknown form of violence as we have not seen in this generation. And I won't take up any more time, but I would like to introduce Dr. Cochav Elkayam-Levy. And we will, if you have questions, as Gerardo said, please put them in the Q&A, and we will try to get to as many as we can at the end of the program, towards the end of the program. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard, and thank all of you for joining us. It's actually afternoon here in Israel, so I'm hoping my children will not jump in to join us to this conversation. I have 4 kids. Yes, so I'm apologizing in advance if this happens. So again, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming to bear witness or wanting to hear more about what we've experienced here. If it's okay, I want to start by sharing about myself before the 7th of October, before we got this difficult role that we never asked for ourselves to document these terrible crimes. So before the 7th of October, I'm just a law professor. I teach international law, human rights, feminist theories, and climate justice in both Hebrew University and Reichman University. I'm a postdoctoral fellow of the Hebrew University on peace and conflict resolution. I've been very involved in the protest movement in Israel, in the women's protest movement, fighting for gender equality, making sure women take place in decision-making. It's important for me to say that we still lack representation of women in national security circles in Israel, and that we've been fighting for this. What else can I say? I've been also a women's rights advocate, a children's rights advocate for many years. I've studied at Penn Law, and I did my PhD, my SJD there. And I established an institute on gender and sustainability, really wanting to think about a better future and assisting peace initiatives here in Israel, especially women building peace. So this is just about myself in a few words. On the 7th of October, like all of us here in Israel, we were shocked, amazed to see things happening 1 hour from our houses, burnings of the kibbutzim, of cities, people, women, children, entire families taken barefoot into Gaza. Their houses are burned. People called, young men and women called to say final goodbyes to their families. Again, we were shocked to hear about the massacres in different locations. And in the human rights circles, we started getting more and more information about what was happening there, especially images and videos that were already posted by Hamas in the social media of the families of the people that were killed or kidnapped into Gaza. And I think one thing that is important for me to emphasize about this very moment is that despite the fact that we were very critical of the government, we weren't as critical or we didn't expect any this kind of difficulty from the national security forces. I think I can tell you that we lost the basic sense of security here in Israel. It's important to understand and to underscore that we feel existential threat since then here in Israel. Anyway, as an international expert, I can tell you very sincerely that I didn't think it would be difficult for UN organizations, especially those organizations, many mechanisms at the UN that are working on women and children's rights, to respond very quickly, especially with regards to the families that were taken into Gaza, to the women and children, babies, including babies that were taken into Gaza. And we thought that in light of the horrific scenes that we've seen, that the response will be very swift. And when I'm talking about response, I want to underscore that I'm talking about reporting the 7th of October, just initially reporting, mentioning that the 7th of October happened. Secondly, condemning the crimes, expressing solidarity with the human suffering that we've seen here. And as I said, the horrific scenes that we've seen. And thirdly, offering help, just offering help here. So actually, when we saw that especially those organizations that are usually responding quickly are not responding, this is how it all started. I gathered a group of experts in international law and human rights, and we started drafting a civil petition calling for the return of the hostages, for the UN and the international community to take action for the return of the hostages and for condemning these crimes against women and children, and or civil society petition. And the third document was a legal report that I personally drafted with the help of other experts, international law experts, a very brief legal report outlining the kind of crimes and violations of international law. More than 180 international law professors and human rights experts have joined this. And I can tell you, usually the UN does not get reports from 180 professors, over 180 professors. And we sent these documents really to every UN agency. It was the second week after the 7th of October attack, both personally and formally. And I can tell you, because as a legal expert, and you're all lawyers like me, I felt the need to bear with my own eyes, to bear witness, to see with my own eyes what I'm reporting on. And this is the first time that I realized that despite thinking or naively thinking that perhaps they don't understand, I realized that the information circulating outside of Israel was much, much wider. People here in Israel still didn't know what was happening, not like that. They haven't seen all of the footages because of the victims, because many of the videos and images show the faces of the victims, their bodies. Some of them were naked bodies on the streets, or anyway, horrific videos that I realized were seen much more outside of Israel, and it was just a shocking realization at that point. And I can tell you today, I just want to share that I'm feeling a bit angry that we had to expose ourselves to such traumatic materials in order to get organizations or the international community to believe us. We felt that people are not understand what happened here. And so we sent these petitions, we sent these letters, and then we waited for weeks for those organizations to respond. And when we didn't get an answer, not even a thank you note, the second thing that happened is that I was invited. I was invited to deliver a speech before the CEDAW committee. So the CEDAW committee, if you went through the materials that I sent you that the CEDAW committee is the most important committee at the UN responsible for women's rights. I was invited to represent the protest movement, the women's protest movement. And we decided to dedicate this speech, it was October 30th, to shed light on the crimes against women and children. And a day before that speech, two things happened. One thing that happened, the first thing that happened is that many in Israel have heard that I'm going to speak at the UN about those crimes and started sending me a lot of information. I used to cry sharing this. Now I'm okay. It was just overwhelming to get a lot of videos, images, messages saying, Cochav, would you please tell them that this and this happened, this and that happened, please share with them. It was really a difficult experience, and I felt a huge responsibility. The second thing that happened is that day, the CEDAW committee, it was October 29th, did decide to release a statement a day before that speech, not mentioning the 7th of October, not mentioning the hostages, which is an ongoing crime against humanity. And it was deeply surprising, deeply devastating. I can tell you that I didn't think I would be able to speak that day. I didn't think that I will be able to deliver that speech. And anyway, when I spoke at the UN, I told them perhaps the 7th of October disappeared in time itself. Perhaps we live on another planet of sorrow and agony. I shared the kind of information we know. We have regarding the crimes against women and children, not only the sexual abuse crime, but all the maiming, the burnings of people. And I told them that in their silence, first they're fueling denial campaigns that were already circulating. They are demonizing us in a way, or dehumanizing us. And they're really delegitimizing the international system. Sorry, this is delegitimizing the international system and everything we've believed in. I want to emphasize that I chose to teach international law. I chose to teach of this system, even though many in the US are cynical of the international legal system. I've been a great believer. People are very cynical here in Israel as well. And I want to say that I'm trying very hard to keep this belief, because we have to have it for the next generation. And I asked them, is there international law for Israeli women? Is it going to protect us? I asked them to raise their voices, to release the hostages, to take action for us, to help us in any way, to believe us, to believe, because they were actually inflicting on us the same denial mechanisms that are usually inflicted on sexual abuse victims. They're now inflicting on us collectively. And it was a hard realization. After that, what happened next is that realizing that they're not responding, they're not condemning the crimes, they're not answering us, I had this realization that we have to stop. We have to stop trying to communicate, and we have to start documenting everything ourselves, documenting everything, collecting all the information meticulously, collecting evidence, collecting the images, starting to create. I remember saying we need to establish an archive under the most compelling international norms. I didn't know what I was taking upon myself. I've done a thing or two in my life, but I didn't realize how difficult this is going to be. I knew that this is our mission, to preserve the historical truth, to collect legal materials, to make sure the truth is preserved. Especially crimes against women are always denied. This is not something that I didn't expect. As a feminist scholar, it's not I anticipated it. It's not that I didn't expect. I anticipated it, but I didn't anticipate the institutionalized denial, the denial by those institutions that are supposed to protect women's rights. Thank God we've made progress. As Richard mentioned, a few UN mechanisms have already approved what we've seen very early. And I especially want to mention Pramila Patten, the special UN rapporteur on sexual violence during war, who I sent you her report that made strong conclusion regarding the sexual abuse that was brutally perpetrated here by Hamas and others as well have mentioned it. But at that time, it was a shocking realization. We started documenting everything. Today, I can tell you, before today, I'll say that it started a global campaign for recognition. We've moved from state to state. Instead of the UN expecting the UN to respond, we started working with states, with the entities of the UN, to make recognition, to make sure we establish recognition, at least outside the UN. One of the most strongest condemnation was from the US administration, the Biden administration, that released a strong condemnation after meeting with us, and even before that, recognizing what happened. And of course, it led for other states to condemn the crimes as well. And so that was a huge global campaign. And of course, we're still meeting with leaders and briefing them on the kind of information that we've collected. And today, and I'll return to today to say that we have established an archive. As I said, under the most compelling international norms. The head of the archive is the former deputy head of the Yad Vashem archive, Advocate Eleanor Cortero. We have forensic experts, researchers, legal experts, experts in trauma and sexual violence, collecting testimonies, collecting footage, collecting videos. We still every day, every week even, get databases that people deposit in the archive. So this is a major work that we're doing, and we're documenting all war crimes against women and children, not just the sexual abuse, because when you see the images, when you see the torture that people have been through, the abused naked bodies, the burning of bodies, you understand the handcuffing, the bounding of legs. You understand, and again, in several locations across the Gaza Strip and across the Israeli cities, kibbutzim, and in different locations. And as I said, you understand the brutality that was inflicted on the victims. So that's the work that we're doing at the moment. I think the greatest challenge, people ask me, what is the greatest challenge? So the greatest challenge is being exposed to these materials on a daily basis. It's mentally extremely difficult. I can't even explain it. We are talking among ourselves what it is causing us to, not even to our mental health, but also to our beliefs, to our belief in peace, to our belief in everything that we fought for before the 7th of October. So it's kind of the conversations that we have among ourselves. And so this is the work that we're doing. The archive, we hope that it will be accessible. We're working on it to be accessible to international organizations, academic, for generations to come, really, for generations to come. This is what we're doing. And one last thing, I want to refer to what Richard said. One of the most interesting people that I've had the privilege to meet after the 7th of October is Professor Erwin Kotler. Professor Erwin Kotler is a human rights scholar. He has been the former Minister of Justice of Canada. And in one of my conversations with him, I shared with him that actually the most horrible, the most horrific videos that we have in our archives are those of families when the terrorists documented themselves with GoPro cameras entering the houses. The children are screaming, terrified. The parents are terrified. Sometimes they are injured. In one video, for instance, you see a family after they just witnessed the murder of their daughter, and the mother is saying, of their eldest daughter, and the mother is saying to the other young children, this didn't happen, and they're sitting on the floor. And it's really heartbreaking in ways that I can't even convey properly. It's the kind of evil that can't be explained. And they separated families, they separated children from families, from parents. They murdered parents in front of their children, children in front of their parents. And I told Professor Kotler, I think, I didn't know if I'm sounding crazy. I told him, I'm not sure this abuse of families is defined in international law. We still don't have legal definitions to this kind of familial abuse. And I think we're seeing a new crime against humanity. And Professor Kotler really supported me and encouraged me to continue this work. And we are developing this together at the moment with the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Canada. We're documenting the specific abuse against families, the specific patterns that were and conducts that were perpetrated in the houses. Just this week, we've been to Kfar Aza and Nir Oz, two of the most affected kibbutzim that their houses have been burned. They, in many cases, the terrorists entered the houses and made sure they destroy everything before they reached the families and murdered them or kidnapped them into Gaza, or murdered some of them and then kidnapped them into Gaza. And I haven't even had a chance to, and I'm not even mentioning the abuse in captivity, the sexual abuse in captivity, and also the physical and psychological abuse in captivity, which has been horrifying against children and adults as well. And I do want to mention that we are also documenting sexual abuse against men, which is important for us to document as well, and unfortunately happened as well. So I'll end by saying that one positive thing that we are still meeting a lot of friends around the world, a lot of partners, especially in the US, our moral allies, those who have understanding of the kind of difficulties that we are experiencing and just lending their support in any way possible. So I want to be grateful of that because it's important for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. I have just a couple follow-up thoughts, but firstly, I want to say that as someone who has probably been more immersed in this situation since October 7th and has dealt with this so intimately, we can still hear the emotion in your voice. Clearly you don't harden to this type of crime. Firstly, I guess I want to ask a question with a quick follow-up question to that, and that is, you've obviously gotten a lot of different evidence, and you mentioned that the Facebook or the internet publications by actual Hamas terrorists is one of those things. How is it that the UN can deny such primary evidence, such clear evidence, such admissions?
Oh, it's an excellent question. I think their silence was, as I said, it was shocking. Several mechanisms did refer to the crimes, but many didn't. At some point, weeks later, we got several mechanisms. I'm saying mechanisms, this is the human rights mechanism, special rapporteurs to condemn the crimes and to join the solidarity, but it took a long time. And I'll say that there's, at the beginning, many asked me to explain how come they're silent, especially here in Israel, and especially those in the human rights community here in Israel and the protest movement were shocked of this silence, and they asked me to explain. And at the beginning, I said it is, at the very, very beginning, perhaps it is politically charged in ways that it will just take them a few days to respond. But afterwards, I just said that there is no justification to the silence, and they need to be the one explaining what happened. And as I mentioned, those who were able to raise their voices after months and acknowledge the crimes, and it's not too late. It's not too late to continue trying to work in ways that will help us again bring some justice to the victims. And I think I say it quite a lot, that justice begins with recognition, justice and healing of victims. We know that when we represent victims, that I think our role as lawyers is to believe, to be there, or as advocates for victims to believe. And we see through that belief how it initiates a process of healing for those who just experience the worst kind of crimes in their lives. So,
Doctor, just a little bit of a follow-up on that. I have a daughter who lives in Washington who called me the other day, and you and I talked about this briefly, and said, I've never seen a situation where when rape victims speak up, nobody listens to them. It doesn't matter what kind of a situation is, whether it's a celebrity or what. And when you see this type of situation, the UN is not speaking up. The Arab nations are not speaking up. And some of the people who are speaking up, and I would mention Representative Jamal Bowman, are basically saying there's no evidence, and they're denying that this ever happened. So we're talking about a person who is involved in our government, who is denying it, and others who say, if it happened, it was justified. How do we respond to that type of thing?
Yes, so that's an excellent question. So the denial is shocking. It's not something that we manage to explain even to ourselves. How is it possible that Hamas came in ready to document everything and at the same time already started denial campaigns in social media in ways that it's like the two things cannot happen together, right? Either you document the crimes yourself, conducting the crimes, incriminating yourself, and then denying at the same time, and it works. It's like a win-win situation for them. It works to deny, it works, and especially the sexual abuse, which is the easiest to deny. And so, yes, it is shocking, despite the overwhelming evidence of the crimes that have happened. As I said, not only the sexual abuse, but the torture and the burnings and the separation of families and the abduction and everything. The denial is still happening. And I think, of course, one of the main reasons is anti-Semitism. We have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that it plays a huge role in what's happening, and I want to say a few more words about that. One of the things that I shared after speaking in front of 5 members of the CEDAW committee, realizing that they're not responding, they're not acknowledging the 7th of October so early after it happened, not condemning the crimes, not calling for the release of their hostages. I asked myself, and I shared this question: are we even human? It's really dehumanizing us. It's the fact that they're not able to express minimal solidarity with what's happening was, again, raised the question: are we even human? Are we as Israeli women are even women, that they can't bring themselves to express solidarity? So it was a difficult realization. The second thing I want to mention, the fact that we were demonized, and we were demonized as Israeli citizens. We are still facing isolations from academic institutes, despite the fact that we've been fighting for human rights. We've been fighting. We see circles that are academic circles that are turning their back on us in ways that is difficult. So I can't explain it. I can just give the observation that, first of all, any international tribunal that is going to take these cases, and not only international tribunals, but domestic courts as well, that are going to handle these cases in many forms that are going to be brought to them, are going to have overwhelming evidence, as I said, footage, videos, and eye testimonies, and that with people that were there and can share. And a lot of it is what Hamas documented themselves. So
we have that now. How do we get that before these deniers? How do we obviously discredit what they're doing and what they're saying, and their acceptance of this type of attack? We have members of our government who are normalizing this kind of behavior. Is there something missing that we can do? Is there something in our process? I guess that's my question.
So that's a good question. I can tell you just my strategy. It's in my personality. I feel like I can't fight evil face to face. What tragedy has been to seek for our moral allies, for those who did raise their voices, especially in the U.S. administration, and especially in the U.S. Congress, and just to support and make stronger partnerships with those who want to help. And I think it was a brilliant understanding at the very beginning that we should stop trying to communicate this to the UN, and we should start looking for senators, congressmen, leaders all around the world, embassies, different ambassadors that were willing to help, willing to connect us with other entities to support civil society documentation efforts who are willing to raise their voices. I want to mention, for instance, the Minister of Gender Equality in France that has met with us and immediately released a decision to stop governmental funding to organizations, human rights organizations that are denying the 7th of October. Just this week, Vice President Kamala Harris has hosted a huge event at the White House, giving Amit Sosna an opportunity to share the horrible sexual abuse that she has experienced in captivity, taking action to release the hostages. And so I think my strategy was to just work with our allies, help them as much as possible instead of fighting this denial, those who deny, who have obviously lost their moral, I don't know, I forgot the word for their
Compass.
moral compass. Thank you. Their moral compass, their moral ability to see clearly what's happening. You know, I thought at the beginning, I said, I think humanity has lost we are experiencing a moral blur. And it's difficult. It's overwhelming to see the denial. I completely understand. So, yes,
Well,
I hope it answers your question. I'm not sure if I'm helping.
It's certainly.
The facts talk of themselves. The facts and the truth, we know it as lawyers. It's just that the social media and all of these campaigns are, it's really heartbreaking. That's what it is.
It also speaks as to the what's going on at the UN, but I don't want to monopolize this. Gerard or Ernesto, are there some questions in the question and answer?
Yes, there are, and I'll read a few of them here while we have some time. First one came through is, I'm wondering what and who is working on a committee to address the PTSD that accompanies any sexual abuse?
To our commission members, you mean?
It doesn't say it doesn't say specifically in the question, but yes, I would think that's yes.
So I personally get therapy every week because, as I said, it's deeply traumatizing, and we provide to the commission members a mental health support and a system that is able to support them through this. Yes, this is what we're doing. And I can say, just for your question, Richard, from before, it's getting harder. It's not getting easier. For me personally, it's just getting harder to understand also that we lost our lives in many ways to be documenting such evil. It's just it's consuming every good every belief that we had in the goodness. Anyway, no. Yes, so we're doing every effort to provide mental health to our commission members, and of course to those who have agreed to give their testimonies, and just allow them to have access to mental health.
How about your
thank you
children?
for that question. Oh, wow, that's an
How
excellent
about the
question.
children? How are they, not just your children, but children in general, handling all of this?
That's a difficult question. My children, it's hard. I'm not sure they understand what I do. I usually tell them that I protect women's rights. But yesterday someone told me that I should share with them more and make sure they understand. I can't explain. So I feel like I'm personally failing my children, but they know that mommy is doing important work. And it's difficult for them, for the children in Israel. I'm not sure they understand that they are in a reality. First of all of us are post-COVID, right? Not only in Israel. It was hard to recover after COVID and have them experience a lot of insecurity, but now that as well. I think it's important to understand we are still experiencing war. they got used to getting into the shelter. I'm actually in the shelter myself now, talking to you from our shelter. They got used to this reality of war, which is a very sad reality. And yes.
Ernesto, any other questions?
Yes. So another question here that came through the audience here. A lot of the victims and hostages are dual citizens and foreign nationals. Does that factor into how you contact other nations to get them to acknowledge these crimes?
No, it's of course it's an important factor in the fact that those states express special interest in their national, special wish to help victims that come from their country. But I can say that those who have worked with us in different countries really cared about assisting the victims wherever they are. And it is going to have a crucial role in the fact that those foreign nationals are going to bring their cases in many courts around the world against Hamas, against its leaders. So we are going to see this developing in multiple legal systems.
Wonderful. Another question. Thank you for the answer here. What services are being provided to victims and families of victims?
In Israel?
Yes.
So it's a combination of civil society support systems that a lot in Israel volunteered to help each other, to see the solidarity among civil society, among the people here in Israel is a light in this darkness, to see people really reaching out every day to help each other. Despite the political divisions that we are experiencing now, I can say that this is a very crucial thing that is happening. Many people volunteer to help, and the government is providing social services. Of course, the social services are always under funded, but yes, so these are the kind of institutionalized social services and a lot of support systems that are done through the amazing volunteer work.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. Another question coming in here. How can we help? Fundraising, hosting webinars with different groups like this. Do you need academic researchers or volunteers with your work? And thank you for everything you are doing.
Thank you so much. Yes, we need researchers that have expertise in international law or sexual abuse or sexual trauma. Those who have experience in building archives. It's always I think as I said, the most difficult work is cataloging and sorting and analyzing the materials. So this is something you need to consider in advance before offering any help here. And one important thing is Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, Screams Before Silence. I think it enabled us to, I share this in the materials because it's a very powerful documentary that was able to give a window, like to allow a window to these difficult crimes, to see what happened here in ways that is very respectful for the victims. So I urge you to share this in any way possible. And I just feel like it enabled us to share truth.
Thank you for that. This one's a little longer of a question here.
Of course.
Firstly, thank you for your work to document these crimes. People I've worked with on documenting genocide survivors' experiences of sexual violence and advocating for justice are now denying, diminishing, or justifying the sexual and gender-based violence of October 7th, and it's unbearable. So thank you for all you are doing. I want to ask about what you are calling the kinocide, because it seems to be reminiscent of crimes that have previously been referred to as life force atrocities. The deliberate destruction and tearing apart of families as a genocidal tool has been documented in recent cases like the Yazidi genocide all the way back to the Armenian genocide. How is what happened on October 7th similar to or different from those previous crimes against the family unit that have occurred in past cases of genocide? And do you believe these crimes formed a pattern of attack that might indicate a planned strategy?
Yes, so thank you so much for this excellent question and for allowing me to speak more about this issue. So as I said, I'm not sure if I said it. So the word kin is the Latin word for familial relationship. So we thought of kinocide as a way to describe the abuse of families as a new categories of war crime, which we are now developing specifically in ways that will be able to incorporate it in the crime against humanity treaty that is now being established, and we are also documenting familial abuse that happened in other atrocities and the history of genocide. I think what's unique here, what happened here, is the fact that they came in with cameras, as I said, and allowed us to see this evil face to face in ways that we were not able in other cases. So we are now learning and collecting as much information about genocide in other places around the world, the way that it happened, and specifically on October 7th and the aftermath of October 7th, we're collecting the patterns that repeated, as I said, the separation of children from their parents, the fact that parents were murdered in front of their children, and as I said, children in front of their parents. We are collecting the patterns to show that it was planned, but of course it will take time till we be able to make conclusive understandings.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. Another question coming in here. When we visit Israel, are there ways for us to be witnesses to further the cause?
Again, can you repeat that?
Yes. It says, I'm sorry, when we visit Israel, are there ways for us to be eyewitnesses to further the cause?
Wow, yes, I think just returning from Kfar Aza and Nir Oz this week, as I said, meeting locals, the people that are members of the kibbutzim, hearing their stories, seeing the destruction, the burnt houses, they are still evacuated. I think it's important to underscore that hundreds, thousands have been evacuated from both the southern part of Israel and the northern part of Israel. So these communities are abandoned. Those families for 8 months now have lost their loved ones. Some of them are still in captivity and they don't have their home. They have been located in different locations around the country, but are still refugees in their own countries. So I think being with them, sometimes I can see that when they have the opportunity to share what happened to them, it's meaningful. It's meaningful for a lot of them. And bearing witness to this very difficult, for this atrocity. I do want to say that, I don't know if it's politically correct, but it is, we are still in war. We are still experiencing war. So we need to take this also. I don't want to risk anyone. Yes, so it's not the safest place to be, but it is important for those of you who want to bear witness and to see what happened here. It's a different experience being there. And I can tell you as someone that has been documenting this for months now, being at these in these locations, hearing from the survivors, there's nothing that can be compared to that. So.
Great, thank you for that response here. Here's another sort of lengthy question. In some recent cases of genocide, survivors of sexual violence have been under pressure to speak. often repeatedly and in great detail about their experiences of sexual abuse. Their confidentiality and privacy and psychological protection were not taken into account. I've seen that your project has a focus on respecting the informed consent of survivors, yet the pressure on Israeli survivors to produce video and other evidence in the face of denial is immense, and very different from previous cases where survivors were always believed. How do you balance those competing pressures?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Thank you. It's a constant dilemma. First of all, the archive is a closed archive because of the fact that the materials are, as I said, exposing people in the most vulnerable position. And we first, as the most important thing, we have a trauma-informed investigation, those who are not investigation, even testimony collection. It's important for us to say this because those who are collecting the testimonies are trauma experts, those who are provide trauma trainings. It's important for us to be in this position. As you said, the pressure is immense. The fact that it felt for many months now that we have to do everything in our power to get information out. So we tried to stay strong in light of this pressure, not releasing information that is not necessary, briefing officials in ways that are respectful for the victims. And also, one last thing, we have adopted the Murad Code and the international ethical codes, and not only adopted these codes, but implemented the codes in our protocols, the work protocols. It's very important for us. And it's not only for the victims, but also for the members of the commission, because as I said, they are exposed to those traumatic materials in ways that we have to safeguard their mental health. For instance, we are minimizing the exposure to the materials. We are only doing it in pairs because when you are exposed alone, it's much more difficult. We're not allowing our employees to do this in ways that can deeply harm them. So yes, it's a challenge and it's a constant pressure, but we are trying to stay strong.
Thank you for that. I have another one here. Journalists such as Glenn Greenwald and Brianna Joy Gray have denied the reports of survivors and witnesses and claim there is no credible evidence of sexual violence on October 7th. Is there any legal recourse your organization has considered, such as defamation or libel against journalists who intentionally deny the atrocities because they harbor potentially deep anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric? I know Sharat Hadin has done something similar when individuals have supported terrorism against Israel.
So I'm not sure what the question, or was it just a comment?
I think it was. Is there any legal recourse your organization has considered against journalists who intentionally deny the atrocities?
Just recently, there was a very horrible publication, and I can tell you a horrible publication denying the crimes. I don't want to even mention who it was because it's just giving them the floor of spreading this denial. As I said personally, I feel like we need to continue our work. It's hard enough. We are not pursuing legal procedures against those to deny it. I think there are others to do it better than us. And it's exhausting enough to do what we do. We can't take it upon ourselves, to be honest.
And just one final thing is from an attendee. I don't know if you would like to share anyway, but the question is, how can we get in touch with you to assist in any way?
So it would be great, Ernesto, if I'd be able to share our contact details. That would be great. We will share it after the webinar with all of those who registered. If you agree, that would be super helpful. I do want to mention one thing regarding the previous question. I spoke at the National Library. We were presenting our documentation effort while others were presenting their documentation efforts. And I was saying that the documenting of the sexual abuse is the only documentation project that is being threatened and denied in such a magnitude, because the sexual abuse is something that Hamas is denying vigorously because they have seen it as something that is probably hurting them strategically in ways that are also in the Muslim world. So for us, it adds another complexity to be a targeted project, to experience the denial even more fiercely and more violently, much more violently. The threats that have been sent to us are something that really should trouble all of us, women all around the world. The fact that we are collecting information about these crimes and trying to document the experiences of women and experience such threats, it's difficult in itself.
Wonderful. And actually, we are running a little low on time, so we will certainly work with you to get contact information out to the attendees for those who would like to assist. Any final words, Richard or Dr. Cochav, for the attendees with the couple minutes we have remaining?
Yes,
I'll
if
just
it's
say
okay.
thank Cochav, I really appreciate your being here. We all appreciate your being here. Understand that it is the policy of the New York State Bar Association that we condemned very early on what transpired, and we're with you on this.
Thank you so much.
And anything we can do to further your cause, I think would be absolutely would be fine. Don't let us know, and if we can do it, we will do it.
Thank you.
I'll just turn the floor over to you for any last comments you'd like to make.
So I do want to ask for all of us to still fight for those who are still in captivity, for their release, to do everything in our power to release them, to make sure their faces are seen everywhere, and that they get the kind of fight that they deserve to bring them back. One last thing that I promised myself as of today to start saying is that we will rebuild. Despite the destruction that we are seeing now in our country, I want to say for myself and to all of us that we will rebuild, we will thrive again. Yes, so it's important for me to say that for all of us, for the sake of all of us. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you who have attended this. This has been recorded and will be able to be obtained. And I think the more people who can hear Cochav speak, the better.
Thank you, Dr. Cochav, so much for participating. We truly appreciate your time and bringing light to this important issue. This does conclude the program, so all attendees should return to your learning dashboard and enter all verification codes announced during the program to receive your CLE certificate. While you're in the learning dashboard, please take a moment to fill out the evaluation form for today's program. We would like to thank you for choosing New York State Bar Association CLE programs, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.